Iria woke up screaming, not from fear, but from memory. Her room was dark, unnaturally silent, and the air trembled as if something invisible had just passed through it. For a brief, terrifying second, the shadows on the wall moved toward her, bending at her will, and then snapped back into stillness. Her heart thundered. Her hands shook. She told herself it had been a dream. But dreams do not leave the taste of iron in the mouth. Dreams do not teach words no human language contains. As she sat upright, gasping, one thought burned louder than the shadows themselves. She wanted it to happen again. Outside her window, far beyond the city lights, the forest stirred. Iria was 21, strikingly beautiful in a way that drew attention without seeking it. Yet there was always something unsettling behind her eyes. Since childhood, she had been different, not fearful of the unknown, but irresistibly drawn to it. While others recoiled from darkness, her mind leaned toward it, fascinated by power that defied human limits. Strength did not frighten her. Weakness did. Somewhere deep within her, long before she understood the meaning of desire, she had wished to be more than ordinary, to possess a force no one else could touch, no one else could survive. One night, her insatiable curiosity drew her to the forest known among locals as haunted and mysterious, a place avoided by everyone else. Iria stepped cautiously along the winding path, the soft crunch of fallen leaves beneath her feet sounding louder than it should, as though the forest itself listened and counted each heartbeat. Shadows twisted and shivered at the edges of her vision, curling around tree trunks like dark fingers, only to vanish when she dared to look. A faint scent drifted on the air, metallic, sweet and ancient, stirring a shiver deep in her chest. Something unseen seemed to move just beyond perception, a presence that was patient, aware, and impossibly old, brushing against her mind with whispers she could almost understand. She tried to convince herself it was nothing, yet an unshakable sense of being watched pressed relentlessly, as if the forest itself had awakened for her. Then came the first hint, a shimmer on the forest floor, a ripple in the moonlight that formed shapes just beyond comprehension. She leaned closer, curiosity clashing with fear, and caught the reflection of her own eyes. Yet there was something in them that wasn't hers, a faint glow that pulsed as if alive. The forest whispered then, not in words but in thought, brushing ideas into her mind like wind through the leaves. This is yours. You belong. You have always been meant to see. Her pulse quickened, a cocktail of dread and exhilaration. Each step further felt both dangerous and inevitable, as if the forest were nudging her along a path she had walked in dreams she had long forgotten. Tiny sparks of light flickered between the branches, and with each shimmer, her imagination stretched. She could sense forces older than humanity reaching for her, brushing her consciousness, tilting her mind ever so slightly towards something she both feared and desired. The air itself seemed to hum with expectation, and Iria realized, with a mix of awe and terror, that she was no longer alone, that something unseen, patient, and ancient was walking with her, guiding her, testing her resolve. Iria's thoughts twisted and turned as she walked, each step deeper into the forest, bringing both dread and fascination. Since childhood, she had felt the same pull, a curiosity for things no one else dared to touch, questions no one would answer. She had imagined powers beyond human comprehension, knowledge locked away, secrets hidden from mortal eyes. Until tonight, they had been dreams, flickering and untouchable. But now, the forest seemed to hum with possibility, brushing invisible fingers against her mind, hinting, urging, shaping her thoughts with a precision that made her shiver. A faint rustle drew her gaze to the shadows, and she froze, Shapes moved there, darker than night, too fluid to be animals, too deliberate to be random. They lingered, watching, waiting, then melted back into the darkness, leaving her questioning her own senses. Yet, in the same moment, a thrilling idea bloomed in her mind. That she could reach for the unimaginable, that the forces brushing against her were offering something forbidden, something extraordinary, if only she allowed herself to accept it. Her pulse quickened. Every instinct screamed caution, but another, older instinct whispered encouragement. The forces did not command, did not shout, they merely suggested, weaving possibilities into her thoughts. Power, knowledge, freedom beyond human limits. Each word, unspoken yet understood, teased her imagination, tilting her toward what she had longed for in secret. It was intoxicating, terrifying, yet seductive in ways she could neither resist nor fully comprehend. The forest seemed to lean closer, shadows gathering as if curious themselves, leaves brushing against her arms like soft fingers. A flicker of movement caught her eye, a reflection in a still pool that did not mirror her perfectly, but showed her altered, ethereal, as if the forest itself was showing her what she could become. And in that moment, Iria realized the first truth of the night. The choice was no longer about whether she would turn back, but whether she would dare to accept what she had always desired. She had been walking toward this moment all her life, guided by unseen forces, by relentless curiosity, by a hunger for the extraordinary. And now the forest, and something far older than the trees themselves, waited for her to step forward willingly. The deeper Iria went, the more tangible the forest's presence became. Shadows stretched and twisted, forming shapes that lingered at the edge of perception. Fleeting, impossible to grasp, yet undeniably aware of her. She could feel a rhythm in the air, subtle vibrations that pulsed through her veins, syncing with her heartbeat, pressing her mind to listen, to notice, to understand. She realized she could hear the forest breathing, almost speaking, shaping her thoughts with a quiet insistence. You were meant for more. You are meant for this. Her curiosity, once a gentle thrill in childhood, now flared like wildfire. The world outside, the mundane, predictable human life she had known, felt constricting, shallow, almost suffocating. Every instinct to remain ordinary recoiled at the touch of the unseen forces brushing against her consciousness. They did not command, they did not threaten. They suggested, whispered, and revealed glimpses of power that seemed almost infinite. She saw herself bending shadows, reading thoughts from reflections, moving with a grace that defied natural law. Then came the first true terror. A shape emerged from the darkness, taller than any human, faceless, yet with eyes that seemed to pierce into her very soul. It did not move, yet she felt its gaze press upon her, a weight that left her trembling. And yet, in that same moment, she felt an exhilarating clarity, a recognition that this being, this force, was part of what she had always sought. Fear and desire tangled, inseparable, as her mind tilted further toward accepting what had been offered. Small signs began appearing everywhere, leaves arranging themselves in intricate patterns, faint lights flickering across tree trunks, water reflecting visions she could not fully understand. Each subtle, horrifying signal reinforced the thought already taking root. The powers brushing her mind were not cruel, they were patient, testing her, teaching her, preparing her. And Iria, despite the terror rising in her chest, felt her resistance falter. The thrill of understanding, of stepping beyond human limits, overwhelmed the fear. She realized that the forest and its forces were not just guiding her. They were awakening something that had always been inside her, dormant and hungry. By the time she reached a hollow at the heart of the forest, her senses had shifted. The air was thick with something ancient and commanding. Her reflection in a dark pool showed not herself, but something other, something untethered from human constraints. A flicker of shadow brushed against her arm, and she flinched, yet inside her chest a spark of longing leapt, the spark of transformation, of power, of irreversible change. The forces did not need to coerce her now. Her mind, her desires, and her fears were aligned. The choice had already been made, long before she realized it. Iria felt it first as a subtle vibration, a hum in her bones that was both exhilarating and terrifying. The forest around her seemed to pulse with life, the shadows stretching toward her, almost caressing her skin. The air thickened, carrying whispers that teased the edges of comprehension. She could feel knowledge brushing against her mind, secrets older than humanity, impossible truths that no one had the right to hold. And the more she resisted, the more they pressed, shaping her thoughts, unraveling the limits she had once accepted as natural. A branch snapped somewhere, sharp and deliberate, and the forest seemed to lean closer. Sparks of light danced across the hollow, forming fleeting shapes, a face here, a hand there, all impossible, all watching. She tried to step back, but her feet no longer obeyed. Every instinct to flee had been replaced with curiosity and hunger. The forces did not coerce, they revealed. They showed her visions of herself bending shadows, whispering to the wind, eyes glowing like fractured moonlight. Fear twisted in her chest, but beneath it surged something darker and stronger. Exhilaration, the rush of impossible power, the intoxicating thrill of being chosen. Then came the first full manifestation. Her reflection in the still pool rippled, and the face staring back was not entirely hers. It was sharper, more ethereal, a being both human and impossibly other. Her hair lifted slightly, as if caught in an unseen current. Her hands tingled with energy that pulsed outward, brushing against the shadows around her. She gasped, trembling, and the forest seemed to respond. Shadows writhed, leaves rustled violently, a low vibration hummed through the ground beneath her. She had never known fear so vivid, nor exhilaration so complete. A shape emerged from the darkness, taller than any human, its form fluid and shifting, its presence pressing against her mind. She felt her consciousness tugged, teased, and expanded. Every cell in her body vibrated with the revelation that she could step beyond humanity entirely. Her curiosity, her lifelong longing for something forbidden, for power no mortal should touch, surged and became irresistible. The forest whispered again, not words, but understanding. You are ready. You belong. Then the sensation intensified, spreading through her with deliberate precision, not burning, but rewriting, as if something unseen was quietly correcting every limit her body had ever known. Fear and thrill intertwined until she no longer distinguished one from the other. The forest, the unseen forces, and the ancient power brushing her consciousness had awakened her fully. She was no longer just Iria. She was something else. Something powerful, terrifying, eternal. And yet, even as the transformation claimed her, the horror deepened. The air grew heavier, carrying the weight of knowledge and power she had never imagined, some of it intoxicating, some of it suffocating. Every step she took, every breath she drew, confirmed that there was no turning back. The forest had chosen her, the forces had accepted her, and she had stepped fully into a world that no ordinary human could survive. Her humanity was no longer a boundary, it was a memory, faint and distant, as she embraced the impossible. Iria stood at the heart of the hollow, the forest alive around her, shadows curling and stretching toward her as if in reverence. Her heartbeat matched the rhythm of the unseen forces, and with each pulse, the air seemed to bend to her will. Her reflection in the pool now revealed a being of impossible beauty and terror, eyes glowing with knowledge no mortal should ever possess. She could feel the energy coursing through her veins, whispering secrets, opening doors in her mind she had never imagined existed. Then the first true horror struck. The ground beneath her quivered, roots rising like the fingers of ancient giants, reaching toward her as if testing her control. She staggered, but instinctively raised her hands, and the shadows recoiled at her command. A laugh, not hers, but a resonance from the forces around her, echoed in the hollow. A sound both joyous and cruel. The forest itself seemed to pulse with life, acknowledging her arrival into a realm far beyond humanity. Her mind swirled with the weight of new perception. Every thought, every memory, every fear she had carried since childhood intertwined with the power now flowing through her. The whispers became voices, voices became visions, and visions became a reality she could shape with a thought. The terror of losing herself to something eternal and other mingled with the thrill of finally becoming what she had always desired in secret. A witch, possessed of powers beyond comprehension, a being no mortal could ever challenge. As the last tendrils of hesitation fell away, Iria felt herself fully claimed. She moved with a grace no human could possess. Her hair floated as if in a current of invisible wind. Shadows danced to her rhythm. The very air shimmered with her presence. The forces around her did not merely observe. They bowed, acknowledging that she had passed the test of curiosity, fear, and desire. She was now a conduit of the ancient, a master of forbidden knowledge, and the forest, for all its mystery, had finally found its human reflection in her. Yet even in triumph, a chilling dread lingered, crawling along her spine like unseen fingers. The world beyond the forest would never understand her. Ordinary humans would glimpse only shadows and whispers where she passed, unaware of the presence that now clung to her very being. Power flowed through her veins like cold fire, and the knowledge it brought was a blade with two edges, intoxicating and suffocating, wondrous and horrifying in equal measure. She smiled faintly, but the thrill was laced with terror, a shiver racing through her, as if the darkness itself acknowledged her transformation. Then, without hesitation, she stepped into the night that awaited her, fully remade, no longer human, yet utterly, irrevocably herself. The forest exhaled in silence, shadows curling back into the earth, leaves rustling one last time as though whispering a warning. Curiosity has its price, and power is never granted without cost. Iria vanished into the night, a being both beautiful and terrifying, leaving behind a world forever changed by her presence and an audience forever unsettled by what they had witnessed. Weeks passed, though time felt different beyond the forest. Whispers of shadows lingered in places Iria had once walked, fleeting shapes that no one else could see. People spoke in hushed tones of strange lights flickering in the woods at night, of voices carried on the wind, and of a presence that watched silently from the darkness. Her story spread, exaggerated and half forgotten, passed from traveler to villager, a legend growing with each telling. Yet no one truly understood the truth. Iria had crossed a threshold, becoming something far beyond human, a force both beautiful and terrifying. Deep within the forest, the trees shifted as if acknowledging her existence, bending subtly toward the unseen, as though awaiting the next soul drawn by curiosity, hunger, or desire. For power, once offered, does not sleep, and the forest never forgets those it chooses. The forest lay still, yet its silence was alive, humming with secrets only Iria now understood. The forest lay still, yet its silence was alive, humming with secrets only Iris now understood. Shadows curled in corners of vision, faint and restless, as if testing the edges of the world beyond. Travelers whispered her name, recounting the tale of the girl who vanished, speaking of her in fearful admiration, unknowingly feeding the legend she had become. Somewhere, deep within the darkness, a faint glimmer of movement hinted that she was still watching, still learning, still shaping the world in ways no mortal could perceive. The wind carried a whisper, soft and almost playful. Curiosity never dies, and neither does power. And for those who dare to follow the shadows, share this story, and invite others to step closer to the unknown, the forest will remember.